Okay, so for those of you out there studying math for the GED, I want to go over a common mistake when folks are solving equations. This is kind of basic algebra, so I'm going to kind of get right to it. So let me just say this much. If you don't understand what I'm doing, even the basics, then obviously you want to go back and start studying equations. You're certainly going to need to know how to do the equations on the GED. But let's go ahead and take a look at a couple examples, and then I'll get into this particular mistake. So if I had, let's say, x plus 2 is equal to 8. All right, so let's see if you know how to do that problem. You might want to pause the video and do this real quick. All right, so if you said, well, I need to subtract 2 from both sides of the equation, you would be correct. So this is going to be x is equal to 6, okay? And by the way, let me just say, if you need to a place to start learning equations from like the ground up, you know, you don't remember any of this, you can come on over to my free GED Math Lessons website. The link will be in the description of this video to take my free GED Math course. But this is the basic, this is a real simple equation, and this is the solution. Now notice I have the variable here, and I'm adding a number to it, and it's equal to another number. Okay, this is what we call a one-step equation, where we literally just took one step to get the answer. Now let's take a look at another scenario. What if I had 2x is equal to 10? Okay, so let's see if you know how to do that. So in this scenario, 2x means 2 times x. So 2 times some number is equal to 10. So in this case, I need to divide 2, or I need to divide both sides of the equation by 2. I'm going to get x is equal to 5. Right? So this is the solution to this equation, and this is the solution to this equation. So most students, as they're learning equations, the basics of solving algebraic equations, they kind of understand these particular type of problems, these basic one-step scenarios. Now, the mistake that I'm talking about is this scenario, okay? So when we have a number times a variable equals another number. So if I gave you the equation 3y is equal to 9, okay, hopefully you can solve that. You just basically follow the pattern of what I did over with this equation, right? So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So I have y is equal to 3, okay? Now, that's simple enough. Let me kind of erase all this. So a lot of your students say, okay, I get that. I get this, how to solve these type of equations. So what happens if I have an equation like this? 2/3 x is equal to, let's say, 5, okay? So if you follow the pattern, this is still a number times a variable equals another number, okay? It's following the patterns of these examples that I gave previously, okay? So what you can do, okay, and you would be correct to say, well, I need to divide the equation by both sides by whatever number I see here, okay? That's the pattern, that's what I'm doing, and that would be correct. So you would go, okay, that's going to be 2/3 divided by 2/3, so that's the way I would write it, and that's going to be 5 divided by 2/3, okay? So this is where students, they tend to get in trouble, especially with the fractions. This confuses them. They say, well, I got a fraction divided by another fraction. There's a lot of fraction bars here. So inevitably, they do these calculations incorrectly. They have the right idea in mind, and they'll get the wrong answer. You got to get right to the point. So let's talk about how we would go about doing this, right? Kind of like a shortcut, an easy way to approach this problem that will help you, you know, keep the process in check so you don't get the wrong answer. It's pretty easy. So when I have a fraction times a variable, like in this case, 2/3 x equals 5. Here, I'll actually put another example down here. Let's say I had 2/5 y equals, let's say, to 1/2, right? We'll do this problem after I do this basic example. Kind of move this over here. But these are the type of problems I'm talking about. All right, so 2/3 x is equal to 5. So in order to do this problem, all you need to do is take the fraction, so whatever fraction I'm looking at, 2/3 here, and flip it upside down, okay? Okay, so we're going to take the reciprocal. We're going to flip it upside down. So when I flip it upside down, it's going to be what? 3 halves, right? Okay, so we're going to multiply the left-hand side of the equation by the reciprocal. In this case, it's 3 halves, okay, because I just flipped it upside down. But I also need to multiply this other side by the reciprocal as well. All right, if you do this in these particular situations, you'll get the answer correct every single time. So 3 halves times 2/3, all right, this is just 1. Remember, when I'm multiplying fractions, I'll do it over here. 3 halves times 2/3, all we do is multiply across. So 3 times 2 is 6 over 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So this is just going to be 1x, or simply just x. Okay, we don't write the 1 in front of it. But this is what we're looking for. If you look here, x is equal to 5 or y is equal to 3. When we're solving the equations, we want to have that variable all by itself. Okay, so like a 1x or a 1y. When you have the left-hand side, and after you've done all your steps solving an equation, once you have that just 1x or 1y or 1z or whatever the variable might be, that means you're done, solving the equation. You have the solution. So now what you have to do is do this right-hand side of the equation. Okay, so this is going to be 5 times 3 halves. So 5, you're saying, well, I don't see this as a fraction. Well, 5 as a fraction is simply 5 over 1. Okay, so anytime you see a number by itself, like 5 or 7, and you want to represent it as a fraction, let's say 7, well, 7 as a fraction is 7 over 1, okay? Because 7 divided by 1 is the same thing as 7, okay? So just a basic review of fractions. So now when I do this, all right, 5 over 1 times 3 halves, remember I'm multiplying fractions, I go across, I'm going to have 5 times 3 is 15, and then 1 times 2 is obviously just 2. Okay, so this is going to be 15 halves, and that's my answer. Now, I could have done this problem, okay, solve this problem using the same steps by dividing a fraction by another fraction and both sides, and you would get the exact same answer. And technically, what I'm doing here is the end result of doing that previous process. Okay, the first thing that I showed you, but this is kind of a shortcut way of just remembering how to do it. Right, so keep this in mind. It will definitely help you avoid making those mistakes when you're solving these equations that involve fractions. So let's go ahead and do this last one here. Do this example right here. Okay, so. I always feel it's good for you to kind of pause the video and see if you can do it on your own before I go over it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it here. So I have 2/5 y is equal to 1/2. So remember, I have this fraction times a variable equals another number. It could be any number. It could be a fraction on the right-hand side. We don't really care. The step is take this fraction, 2/5, and what am I going to do? I'm going to flip it over, right? I'm going to get the reciprocal, so that's 5 halves, right? But what you do when we're solving equations, the number one rule is whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side of the equation, okay? So I'm multiplying now by 5 halves, so I have to multiply this side by 5 halves. Okay, so 5 halves times 2/5 is all, when we do all this math, it's going to be 10 over 10, or just, it's always going to be 1, okay? 1y or just y, okay? And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to have 1/2 times 5 halves is going to be what? 1 times 5 is 5 over 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so that's going to be 5 over 4. And that's my final solution. Now, I want to make one last kind of comment here. And this is actually another mistake that students make. These fractions here are what we call improper fractions, okay? In other words, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So a lot of you would want to go like, oh, I need to change this into what we call mixed number. You're going to go over here and you say, okay, 4 divided by 5. Let's see, 4 goes into 5, 1. 1 times 4 is 4, so that's 1. So that's 1 and 1/4, right? So this fraction here is the same thing as 1 and 1/4. There's no need to change your final answers into what we call mixed numbers. As long as these answers here, okay, your fraction answers are fully reduced, that should be fine. You should be able to identify those solutions, on the GED, okay? And also, do not turn these into a decimal. Don't go into your calculator and take 5 and divide it by 4, okay, and get 1.25. You don't want to do that, right? You just simply want to fully reduce these answers. Okay, so a lot of this, when you're studying for the GED, when you understand these basic principles, most students kind of get, the basics and stuff, and they're like, okay, but a big part of learning math is, from a teacher's perspective, is avoiding common mistakes. Okay, then this is one. These mistakes here I'm showing you are very, very common. So if you understand this and you're learning equations, which you're certainly going to have to know for the GED, then it's just going to make you that much more accurate. So once again, if this video helped you out, please subscribe. I do a ton of these free math videos, and then of course, I'm going to leave you my GED math lessons.com. Okay, so it's my free, full, comprehensive course to prepare for the GED. It's video based, and it's pretty significant because the new GED, well, compared to the one previous to 2014, is pretty. It's pretty challenging. So you got to know this stuff, and you should, actually be trying to strive to improve your math skills because you know, um, math, if you're going to continue your education or whatever you do in life, it's a skill that's going to benefit you. All right, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and good luck.